A man is carrying a 92-pound block of iron across a yard in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. He picks it up, walks it to the rail car, sets it down, walks back. All day. There's another man standing over him with a stopwatch and a notebook. The man with the iron is named, in the book that made him famous, Schmidt. You probably think this is a story about a hard day's work. It isn't. It's a story about who gets blamed when the work goes slow. Because the man with the stopwatch wrote a book, and that book is the reason your first instinct when something breaks at work is to look at a person. The man with the stopwatch was Frederick Winslow Taylor. In 1911, he published a 144-page book called The Principles of Scientific Management. In 2001, the Fellows of the Academy of Management voted it the most influential management book of the entire 20th century. So this is not a footnote, this is the operating system. And here's the word at the center of it: soldiering. Taylor used it for workers who, in his words, deliberately work slowly so as to avoid doing a full day's work. He called it almost universal in industrial establishments. He called it the greatest evil afflicting working people. He called one example almost criminal. Read that again. The problem in 1911 is the worker's character, the worker's hidden laziness. That's the lens. A thing goes slow, you look at the person doing it, and you assume they're holding back. Now, Taylor wasn't only blaming workers. Buried in the same book is a sentence that should have changed everything. He wrote, "In the past, man has been first. In the future, the system must be first." He even said that the old way put the entire responsibility on the workman, and his new way put a great part of it on management. So the good question was right there. Stop staring at the person, look at the system around them. But that's not the part that traveled. The part that traveled was the stopwatch, the man standing over Schmidt, the instinct to fix the person. Now, move forward about 13 years to a giant factory just outside Chicago. The Hawthorne works in Cicero, Illinois, a Western electric plant. Starting in 1924, engineers ran an experiment on the lighting. The question was simple. Turn the lights up. Do people work faster? And the story everyone tells is incredible. They turned the lights up, output went up. They turned the lights down, output went up. They turned them down to about moonlight, and output still went up. The lesson the world took from that: it was never the lighting, it was attention. People worked harder because someone was watching, and someone cared. They gave it a name, the Hawthorne effect. Except the name came later. It was coined in 1953 by a researcher named John R.P. French, decades after the experiment ended. Harvard's Elton Mayo joined around 1928 and ran the famous follow-ups, the room with 6 women assembling telephone relays. And the conclusion Mayo drew was about the people, their morale, their feeling of being a special group, their attitude. Notice what just happened. Taylor stared at the workers' laziness. Mayo stared at the workers' feelings. Different verdict, same lens. Both of them looking at the human, not the system. And here's the turn. The Hawthorne lighting result, the one in every textbook. The data was never formally analyzed. For decades, people thought it had been destroyed. Then, 2 economists, Stephen Levitt and John List, went looking. They found the original illumination data on microfilm at a university in Wisconsin. They ran the numbers, and in their words, the existing descriptions of supposedly remarkable data patterns proved to be entirely fictional. There was no clean evidence that output jumped every single time the lights changed. The famous version was a story, not a finding. The most influential idea about workplace motivation in 100 years, built on data nobody had actually checked. So sit with the shape of it. 1911, we learned to blame the worker's character. The 1920s gave us a softer version, blame the worker's mood, and we dressed it up as enlightenment. And the proof underneath was thinner than anyone admitted. Which brings it to your desk. A ticket sits in the queue for 9 days. The report goes out wrong again. The handoff drops, 3rd time this month. What's your first thought? It's a name. It's almost always a name. Who dropped this? That instinct isn't a flaw in you. It's a 100-year-old habit you inherited. You were taught to look at the person standing over the iron. But here's what the better half of Taylor's own book already knew. The man has been first for too long. The system has to come first. The ticket sat 9 days because there was no owner and no clock on it, not because someone's lazy. The report went out wrong because 2 tools disagree on what done means, not because someone doesn't care. The handoff drops because the handoff was never written down, not because your teammate forgot. People don't usually break good systems. Bad systems break good people, quietly, on a Tuesday, and then hand you a name to blame. So next time something goes slow, try the harder question first. Not who did this, but what let this happen. Pull the steps into the open. Write down who owns each one and when. Look at the path, not the person. The man with the stopwatch had it half right. The half worth keeping isn't the stopwatch, it's the sentence he almost